In this video, we're going to learn the basics of something called the distributive property. The distributive property is hard to put into words, so I'm going to use mathematical symbols to show you what it looks like. If I have a value, we'll call it A, and I multiply it by two other values that are added together in a set of parentheses. This is where the distributive property is used. And what the distributive property says is I can take the value that's on the outside, and since this is being multiplied by the quantity B plus C, I can take the A and sort of pass it out. I can distribute it, and I can multiply it by all the pieces inside the parentheses. So what we're going to do, and I draw the lines here to help me remember, is we're going to multiply the A times B, and then we're also going to multiply the A times C. And that's what the distributive property says. If you have a value outside of the parentheses, you can multiply it by each term in the parentheses, and then you can drop the parentheses. This also works for subtraction. Same idea. The A gets distributed, except in this case, we use a minus sign. So we're going to do some rather simple examples with numbers to help you get used to the distributive property. Here's an example. I want to rewrite this using the distributive property. Now I know PEMDAS would make this easy. You just do 8 times 14 and you get an answer. Fine. I'm not interested in that so much. What I'm interested in is you using the distributive property. Taking the 8 and multiplying it by the 10. And then taking the 8 and multiplying it by the 4. So this ends up being 80 plus 32, which is 112. So this is the way that we evaluate it, but notice we use the distributive property. We multiply the 8 by each term on the inside. This step right here, the second step, you don't have to show that if you can do it in your head, but I'm doing that just so people can understand. Our next example looks like this, but here we're multiplying the 6 in the back. That doesn't change anything. We're still going to distribute the 6 and multiply the 12 times the 6 and the 3 times the 6. 12 times 6 is 72. 3 times 6 is 18. And then 72 minus 18 is 54. In these examples, we're looking at two numbers, in this case 15 and 99. Now if you multiply by 99, that's difficult. But I can use the distributive property to make this a little easier for myself. Instead of 99, what if I could multiply by 100 and 1? Those are a lot easier to multiply by. Well, isn't 100 minus 1 equal to 99? So by rewriting the number 99 as 100 minus 1, I can now use my distributive property. 15 times 15 times 100 is 1500. And then I distribute the 15 to the 1. 15 times 1 is 15. And 1500 minus 15 is 1485. It would have taken a little more work, I think, to multiply those out without using the distributive property. Our next example is 35 times 2 and a fifth. That's not very easy, but if I see 2 and a fifth as 2 plus 1/5, and then I can use the distributive property. 35 times 2 is 70. 35 times 1/5, I'll go down here and look at that in blue. This is really a 35 over 1. 5 goes into 35 7 times, so we end up with a 7. And then 7 plus 70 is 77. So those are some examples of using the distributive property. When you have a value that's outside of a group of parentheses, you distribute it or multiply it by each term inside the parentheses.